The first day of term arrived much sooner than I expected. As I sat on the bus, I couldn't help thinking about how different my life looked from what I had imagined. My thoughts drifted backward to Jason, to all the plans we had made. It's funny how dangerous plans can be. Not because planning is wrong, but because sometimes you begin to mistake plans for promises. We had talked about everything: where we would live, the places we would visit, the life we would build together. When Jason got his lecturing position, I was genuinely happy for him, proud even. I remembered convincing myself that 2 years apart would pass quickly. Now, sitting on that bus, I found myself asking questions I couldn't answer. But today wasn't about Jason. Today was about me. I was starting my PhD, and I wasn't about to miss my first lecture because I was busy reliving the past. The university campus was buzzing with activity. Students were everywhere. I've never been particularly comfortable around large groups. I like arriving early, finding my seat, getting settled before everyone else arrives. It gives me time to breathe, time to adjust, time to make a space feel familiar. Thankfully, I arrived with plenty of time to spare. I found my classroom, chose a seat near the side, and organized my notebook and pens. By the time the lecture started, my nerves had settled considerably. And then something wonderful happened. I remembered how much I loved learning. The lecture was fascinating. I filled page after page with notes. By the end, I felt energized, excited, alive. I had missed this more than I realized. As students began leaving the classroom, I started thinking about my next stop. The library seemed like a good idea. I would need to meet my supervisor soon, and I wanted to make a strong impression. I was so caught up in my thoughts that I didn't hear someone calling after me. "Excuse me!" Nothing. "Excuse me!" Still nothing. Then I heard footsteps, fast footsteps. I turned around just in time to see a young woman practically jogging toward me. "Oh, thank goodness," she said breathlessly. "I thought you were never going to stop." I laughed. "I'm sorry." She needed directions to the registrar's office. I helped her figure out where she needed to go. Or at least I tried. What should have been a 2-minute conversation somehow turned into 20. Her name was Michiko. She was from Japan. She was also a postgraduate student. And unlike me, she possessed enough energy to power a small city. She spoke quickly. She gestured dramatically. She interrupted herself constantly. And somehow all of it was charming. There was something immediately likable about her. She was open, warm, genuine, the kind of person who makes strangers feel comfortable. Eventually, she glanced at her watch. "I'm actually going to get lunch before class." Then she hesitated. "Would you like to join me?" Normally, I would have said no, not because I didn't want company, because meeting new people has never come naturally to me. But something about Michiko felt different. "Sure," I said. Her face lit up instantly. "Excellent." Lunch lasted almost 2 hours. Neither of us intended for it to. The conversation just flowed naturally. We talked about home, our families, culture shock, the weather, London transport, the strange British obsession with queuing. Eventually, the conversation became more personal. Michiko told me about a painful breakup she had experienced shortly before moving to London. Someone she thought she would build a future with. Someone who wasn't part of her life anymore. As she spoke, I felt an immediate connection. Not because our stories were identical, but because the emotions were familiar. Loss, confusion, loneliness, the challenge of starting over. For the first time since arriving in London, I spoke honestly about my own situation. Not every detail, just enough. Michiko listened carefully. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer advice. She didn't try to solve anything. She simply listened. Sometimes that's the greatest gift another person can offer. By the end of lunch, we were laughing, comparing cultural misunderstandings, discussing confusing British expressions, making fun of ourselves. When I mentioned that I still needed to buy winter clothes, Michiko immediately pointed at me. We are definitely going shopping together. I laughed. Definitely? Absolutely. You haven't even seen my shopping style. I don't need to. She waved dismissively. We will figure it out together. For some reason, that made me smile. Maybe because it was nice hearing someone say, together, and not feeling pain. Eventually, it was time for her class. She walked me to the bus stop before heading back toward campus. As we said goodbye, I realized something surprising. I felt lighter. Not because my problems were solved, they weren't. Not because the hurt had disappeared, it hadn't, but because I had connected with someone, a genuinely good person, a new friend, and somehow that mattered. As I made my way home, I found myself smiling. Maybe this was another sign that I was beginning to settle into my new life. When I finally reached my apartment building and walked toward the front door, my phone vibrated. I pulled it from my pocket. A message from Michiko. I opened it immediately. Let's survive this place together. From your new best friend. I burst out laughing. Right there on the pavement. People probably thought I was crazy. I didn't care. I quickly typed back. It's a deal. Then I slipped my phone into my pocket and headed inside. For the first time since arriving in London, I didn't feel completely alone. And sometimes when you're trying to rebuild your life, that is enough. By the time the end of term approached, something had changed. Not everything. I wasn't healed. I wasn't over what happened. I still had questions. I still had moments when sadness would arrive unexpectedly and settle beside me for a while. But life no longer felt like something that was happening to me. I was participating in it again, and that felt like progress. It was a Saturday afternoon, and for the first time in weeks, I had absolutely nothing urgent to do. No deadlines, no meetings, no reading lists demanding my attention. Just an entire day to myself. So I decided to go shopping. The train station was busy as usual. People hurried in every direction. Announcements echoed overhead. Trains arrived and departed with mechanical precision. I found a seat by the window and watched the city move around me. It was nearly Christmas. Holiday decorations had appeared everywhere. Store windows sparkled with lights. Giant Christmas trees stood proudly in shopping centers. People carried bags stuffed with gifts. Children pointed excitedly at displays. The city felt different, warmer somehow, even with the cold weather. When I arrived at the shopping center, I joined the crowd and allowed myself to wander. No agenda, no pressure, just curiosity. I browsed clothing stores, tried on jackets, examined boots that looked stylish but probably weren't practical. Admired handbags I absolutely did not need. I wandered through electronic stores, looking at phones and tablets and gadgets I couldn't justify buying. For the first time since arriving in England, I found myself genuinely enjoying being part of the crowd. Not watching from the outside, participating, living. Eventually my feet began protesting. I realized I hadn't eaten. The smell of food led me toward the food court. People filled nearly every table. Friends chatted. Families laughed. Students crowded around trays overflowing with food. I wandered slowly through the options. Then something caught my attention. Bubble tea. I had heard of it, but I had never actually tried it. Well, why not? I joined the queue. When it was finally my turn, the young man behind the counter greeted me with an enthusiastic smile. First time? I laughed. Is it that obvious? A little. His grin widened. Don't worry, I'll make sure your first experience is a good one. He helped me choose a flavor and explain the different toppings. The entire interaction was surprisingly pleasant, easy, natural. Then he tilted his head slightly. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I love your accent. I laughed. Thank you. Where are you from? I told him. His eyes widened. Seriously? That's amazing. The conversation continued while he prepared my drink. Nothing significant, just friendly small talk. But it was nice. A few minutes later, he handed me my drink. I thanked him and turned around. Then everything stopped. The world, the noise, the movement, everything. Because standing a short distance away, standing right across from me, it was Jason. For a second, I genuinely wondered whether I was imagining him. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. Jason, here, now, looking at me with exactly the same shock I felt. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. We simply stared. My heart began pounding so hard it hurt. Months, months of silence, months of unanswered questions, months of trying to rebuild my life. And suddenly he was standing right in front of me. 1,000 thoughts collided inside my head. Walk away. Leave. Go. Don't do this. You don't owe him anything. My body, however, seemed unwilling to cooperate. I couldn't move. Then someone walked up beside him. A woman. She looked at Jason, then followed his gaze, then looked directly at me. Confusion crossed her face, then concern, then understanding. Jason looked at her. The guilt in his expression was impossible to miss, and suddenly I understood. Not everything, not the details, but enough. Enough. My feet finally remembered how to work. I turned around and walked away. Fast. Not running, not quite, but close. I pushed through the crowd, past stores, past displays, past people whose faces I never saw. I just needed distance, space, air. My thoughts were moving too quickly to make sense. I couldn't identify a single clear emotion. Anger, shock, grief, relief, disgust. All of them existed simultaneously. I had imagined seeing Jason again 100 different ways. None of those versions looked like this. As I exited the shopping center, I heard someone calling behind me. Danai! I ignored it. Danai, wait, please. I kept walking. Please, Danai. Something in his voice made me stop. Against my better judgment, I turned around. Jason stood several feet away, breathing heavily. He must have run after me. He grabbed my arm and I shouted at him, Let go of me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he finally said it. Danai, I never meant to hurt you. I stared at him. Hurt me? Jason, you betrayed me. You abandoned me. My voice sounded colder than I intended. His face tightened. He said, Things got complicated. I was dealing with a lot. I laughed once, a short, humorless laugh. I said, You left me at the airport. Jason? You said you couldn't wait to see me. Do you have any idea what that did to me? His eyes dropped. I know I messed up. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. I shook my head. Well, you hurt me, and I was a fool to believe that you cared. He looked devastated. I do care. I always cared. I don't know how to make this make sense. A part of me might have felt sympathy once. Not now. Not yet. Finally, he spoke again. Can we talk properly when you are ready? I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I had crossed an ocean for. The man I had trusted completely. The man I barely recognized anymore. I don't know if I will ever be ready. Then I turned and walked away. This time he didn't follow. The train ride home passed in a blur. The bubble tea sat untouched in my hand. I never even tasted it. I stared out the window and watched darkness settle over the city. My reflection stared back at me, dazed, exhausted, numb. When I finally reached my apartment, it was already dark outside. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, placed my bag on the floor, and sat on the couch. I didn't turn on any lights. I just sat there trying to process what had happened. Jason had someone. No, not had. Jason has someone. While I was making plans, while I was packing suitcases, and while I was crossing an ocean, Jason was making a life and a future with someone else. I just couldn't believe it. The realization cut deeper than I expected. The pain was too large, too complicated, too overwhelming. I simply sat in silence. Then my phone vibrated. Automatically, I looked down. It was a message from Jason. My stomach tightened. I opened it. The words were simple. Seeing you broke me. Please give me a chance, Danai, please. I stared at the screen, confused. Us? What us? There was no us. I hadn't ended this relationship. I didn't walk away. I didn't choose this. Jason, you chose this. You did, not me. Whatever us existed had been taken from me long before I ever arrived in London. And somehow that message left me more confused than ever. I placed the phone face down on the table and sat back against the couch. Outside, London continued moving. Inside, I was left alone with a message that made no sense. And inside, I realized that the answers I had been waiting for would be far more complicated than I had ever imagined.